Today on Retire with Purpose, does your advisor have all of the tools to secure your retirement? What is the index fund bubble and how will it threaten your retirement? And we'll hear from one of the smartest people I know on annuities and retirement income planning.
Are you prepared to retire with purpose? To retire knowing your savings is invested to meet unavoidable needs and expenses.
It's not how much we make during the good times, it's how much we keep during those really bad times.
Certified financial planner Casey Weade is president of Howard Bailey, an advisory firm that believes successful retirement begins with a detailed financial plan personalized to help achieve your life's purpose.
Whatever risk you faced, we've got a plan.
The Howard Bailey team is committed to practical financial planning so you can enjoy family and the future without uncertainty or stress. Stay tuned and learn how you too can retire with purpose.
Good to see you again. I'm Lee Kelso here with Casey Weade, certified financial planner, and he is, of course, the president of Howard Bailey Financial. We're beginning the program today with an article that Casey wrote for Kiplinger's magazine. Here, let me show it to you. It's called, "Is Your Financial Advisor Truly Independent?" And Casey, why did you feel like this was so important for us to start with?
Well, I think it's really important for individuals to look for independent advice where they can get the most unbiased opinion of what they need to be doing in any situation, whether you're looking for property and casualty insurance or you're working with a financial planner on your retirement strategy and one of the most important decisions you're going to make in your life. You know, another one of the major important decisions that many people make during their lifetime is to buy a home. And I made this analogy inside of the article, which is just a discussion about hiring a realtor. If you hired a realtor and they only showed you homes that their firm represented, then you might say, well, I'd really like to see this home with, you know, this pool, or I'd like to see this home with this walk-in closet. And they say, well, they'd probably make up an excuse for why you shouldn't be looking at that home. Well, there's a problem with that home, or there's a problem with that pool. You don't want a pool. You know, pools are just a horrible investment. And they'd start making these excuses and probably never get to the point of saying, well, we can't show you that house because it's not listed by our firm. And you know, that happens in the investment world and in the financial world all the time. We wouldn't work with a realtor that operated like that, but we work with financial advisors that operate like that all of the time, and we do this largely unknowingly because this industry has spent billions of dollars, maybe even trillions at this point, to make sure that there's a lot of confusion around licensing, around who has a fiduciary standard, who has a suitability standard, who has all the tools at their disposal, and I really wanted to get it out there. Often when I write a Kiplinger article, I will look around for articles that I want to put in my weekend reading for retirees, and I'll say, you know what, there's nothing out there on this topic. Somebody needs to write about it, and so I decided to write about independent advice and why it's so important.
An easy way you can get a hold of this article is, as Casey just mentioned, his weekend reading for retirees. Just go to retirewithpurpose.com. You'll find a place there to sign up. It's 4 articles that come to your email, no spam. These are all things that Casey has reviewed and feel that they have value and are worth your time. So that's why they're part of Weekend Reading with Retirees, 1 email once a week. Okay, so if I should be working with an independent advisor, why are so many people working with these guys who you consider to be captive?
Yeah. Well, who do you hear about? Who do you feel most comfortable with? And these might be the companies that you see on the side of a stadium. And you know, these large brokerage houses make people feel really comfortable because they say, well, it's a brand name, I know that name, and I'm comfortable with that. It might be the local bank for that matter, and it's just a matter of convenience. You say, well, I like working with a local bank because it's easy to do. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to realize this is our life savings that we're talking about, and sometimes it means that we might have to get outside that comfort zone in order to get the best tool for the job, and that might not come from the brand name firm or the local bank that you're working with. It might come from working with a smaller organization that isn't putting millions of dollars towards advertising and making sure that you're buying into their firm for probably the wrong reasons.
So if I hear the word independent in their marketing, does that mean that they're independent?
Well, there are some firms out there that will have independent in their name somewhere, and this is just part of the whole convolution of what we see in the industry, where we go, well, I just don't know what to do because it's paralyzing, because there's this confusion out there. And a lot of these companies are independent companies of a larger company, which is really like a franchise. You might think of this like, a McDonald's or a Burger King. These owners are, say, independent owner operators, but really they're being told what to do by a larger organization. McDonald's can't put pizza on the menu. They still have to follow the rules of what McDonald's put in place. That's why you find this uniform standard across all these companies. And McDonald's has a lot of great choices that are there, just like a lot of these franchises have really great choices. But if you step into retirement and you start asking for all of the tools, given your own very specific needs, you might get something that's just okay, meaning that it's suitable. It's not necessarily the best thing for you, but it's what they had on their menu that was as close as they could possibly get to what you asked for.
And so that meets what's called the suitability standard. And we talked about that before on the program, suitability versus the fiduciary responsibility. But recap that. Help us understand why fiduciary is so important.
Well, there's two major standards out there in the industry. In this, they've tried to create a uniform standard across the industry over the last few years called the fiduciary standard. They never got it done. There's millions of dollars that were spent on lobbying to make sure that this never actually got through. And so we still end up with this split standard, which is the fiduciary standard, the suitability standard. The fiduciary standard means that somebody has a legal responsibility to put your needs ahead of their own. The fiduciary standard, or the suitability standard, means that it's just okay. It's suitable, but it's not the very best thing. If we're working with a registered representative of a larger firm, a captive agent, whether that's a captive insurance company or a captive brokerage firm, well, how could they possibly have a fiduciary standard? How could they ever comply with a fiduciary responsibility if they didn't have all the tools at their disposal? Because you come in and you ask for X and you get something that's just kind of close. It's really Y, but it's close to what you actually, it's close to the X that you actually asked for. But if it's not the very best, then they couldn't possibly offer that. And that's why when working with an independent advisor that is a registered investment advisory firm, you can have a fiduciary standard, because we do have all the tools at our disposal, so we can really get down to the best option for that couple that's walking into our office.
So what is the best question? What do I ask my advisor?
Yeah, well, I think we want to ask if they're fiduciaries. I think that's a great question to ask, but I've heard this pushback before where they say, well, fiduciary is really not that big a deal. Bernie Madoff was a fiduciary. Well, yeah, Bernie Madoff was a fiduciary because he was an investment advisor, and it didn't matter which tools that he chose, but there's still crooks on both sides of the aisle. Whether you're a registered representative or a fiduciary, there's still people out there that might not have a third-party custodian, and that is what protects your assets. It has nothing to do with whether you're a fiduciary standard, suitability, a registered rep, or an investment advisor. It has nothing to do with whether your money is safe or not. That all has to do with a third-party custodian, meaning you're never writing a check to your financial advisor. You're never writing a check to the financial advisor's firm, for that matter. It's going to a Fidelity or a TD Ameritrade. I've also heard the argument made that, well, I'm a certified financial planner, and so that means I have a fiduciary standard. Well, it doesn't matter what designation you have behind your name. I have CFP, I have RSEP, CLU, and most of these designations make you adhere to a fiduciary standard according to the board, right? So in order to be a certified financial planner, I have to adhere to the board's fiduciary standard. However, that doesn't carry over to legal ramifications, because the board cannot enforce they can't take my licensing away like the SEC can. The SEC, FINRA, the state insurance regulators, those are the entities that you want to be protecting your life savings from somebody that's not doing the very best thing with your assets. And so when you're looking for an advisor to work with, you look for somebody that is working with a registered investment advisor. So they carry a Series 65 securities license instead of a broker that carries a Series 7 or Series 66 license, and they're a registered representative of the firm that they work for. They don't work for you, they work for somebody else. So you need to find somebody that works with an RIA rather than a broker-dealer to make sure that you're actually working with a fiduciary. And I think more important than anything else, just make sure that you're working with someone that you really enjoy spending time with, because you're going to end up entrusting your life savings with this person for hopefully the rest of your lives, and you got to look forward to seeing them every 3 months for the rest of your life. This is like getting financially married, so take your time getting involved in that relationship and ask a lot of questions.
Well, here's a first chance for you to find out if Howard Bailey might be that person that you want to get financially married with. And what we're going to do is ask you to call before the end of the program to the number on your screen, and you'll be able to schedule a complimentary review of your retirement situation. We'll take a look at whether there are taxes and fees you're paying that maybe you don't have to. How much risk is in your portfolio? Does that put you in jeopardy for your future? Is there a way that you can have a long-term income, something you can't outlive? These are all really important factors that we'll review as we sit down with you and get to know you and have this meeting to help you get started down the path of having a purpose-based retirement. So call the number on your screen for the end of the program. There are people standing by to take your call. And we'll be right back in a second to answer questions from viewers.
At Howard Bailey Financial, every dollar has a purpose. We call it the purpose-based retirement. A certified financial planner will help you decide what you need your retirement money to do for you. We put together a written plan that puts your dollars exactly where you want them to be. And we put every dollar to work to maximize your retirement efficiency. For a higher level of insight and care, choose the purpose-based retirement from Howard Bailey Financial. Call us now to set a complimentary consultation.
Welcome back. It is time for Casey to answer some viewer questions. We start with Kenny in Wakarusa.
Casey, I have a question. I'm about to step into retirement next year or two, and I'm going to need about 6% of my portfolio for retirement income, and I'm going to be 62. I don't feel I can afford the risk of the market anymore. Since I am so close, would it be wise now the time to get out?
I think we need to dive a little bit deeper into this, and it starts with, yes, you probably need to take some risk in order to be pulling 6% a year out of your portfolio. You know, we're talking about a pretty high level of income. 6% a year, you're 62, maybe be retired for the next 25 plus years. That means you're going to need to take some risk. So getting completely out of the market is probably out of the question in your situation. Now, as we ask this question, we have to have this discussion about risk, because we know you're going to need to take it. So let's talk about whether we can take it in the first place. And we use an acronym when we're doing this. That is CAN. So capacity, attitude, and need. One, at a 6% cash flow that you're looking for your retirement, 6% per year, you absolutely have the need to take some risk. Do you have the attitude for the risk? Well, Kenny, it sounds to me like you don't really have the attitude to take the risk. You might panic if you take the risk and we have a major pullback, and that puts your retirement at jeopardy. Number 3, capacity, or C, that capacity you also don't really have. And that's one of the dichotomies that we often have when we look at risk, is that you might have the need for the risk and not have the capacity for the risk. We don't have the capacity because if we take a major hit, now your withdrawal rate may go from 6% to 12% and it never recovers. So we can first start looking at that and realize, well, we don't have the capacity, we don't have the attitude, but we do have the need. Should we take the risk or adjust our goal? And typically the advice would be, well, let's adjust the goal. Well, let's either push retirement out and let those dollars accumulate a little bit longer, put some more away for retirement, watch our Social Security increase in the future, maybe get closer to Medicare age. Or we can also say, well, let's adjust our expenses. Instead of saying we need 6% a year from our portfolio, let's make it 5%. And you might say, well, I'm going to retire no matter what right now, and I'm going to spend 6%. And if that's the case, I think we need to take a really close look at your budget and really do a line item by line item. What are we spending that 6% of your portfolio on as it comes out? What are you spending those dollars on? With the goal of separating your paychecks from your playchecks, or your discretionary expenses from your non-discretionary expenses. And you might utilize a flooring strategy, which Dr. Weade found Howe, professor of retirement incomes, going to share with us here in a little bit of how this might work. You might separate your paychecks, and these are things you can't live without. These are your food, clothing, utilities, housing, shelter. It's all those things that keep you in retirement. And let's say it's $6,000 a month that you need to spend, and those expenses are $4,000 a month. And we utilize your Social Security, maybe a little pension, and then we have some guaranteed income for that piece so that you know you can always cover all of those basic living needs. And then you have this extra cash, which is your paychecks. And we might create that income using traditional investments, might use dividend equities, might use real estate or apartment income, whatever you might have to supplement that income that comes from at-risk assets that you know, well, if something bad happens in the market, I can stop drawing that income. I can not take that distribution for the vacation this year. I just won't go with the family down to Disney. We won't buy that new car this year. We can cut our expenses a little bit and just live off of those guaranteed income sources while we let the market rebound. So I would just encourage you to dig very deep before you just decide to pull the trigger. Think about maybe adjusting the goal, or not just adjusting the goal, but adjusting the way that you're approaching taking that risk, separating those paychecks from the paychecks. Does that make sense, Lee?
Yeah, it does. And I think it's good, first of all, that Kenny's thinking that way and asking the right questions, right?
Exactly. And that's one of the hardest things to do, is because we've been thinking about growth our entire lives. And accumulation, it's been 6% return on my money. And now Kenny is starting to think, well, now I need 6% return of my money. And it's not the return on your money, it's the return of your money that's really important in retirement.
Margaret is concerned about safety, so let's see her question about bonds.
What is safe money? Do bond funds in my 401k count?
Well, unfortunately, Margaret, it has worked very well for the last 30 plus years as interest rates have been falling. But now as interest rates rise, we may see a lot of these bond funds struggle. And there is the possibility that you have the market pulling back, and so equities losing value and bonds losing value due to rising interest rates. And some of the major bond indexes are negative this year. Take a look at one of the largest bond index funds in the world, which is AGG, iShares Bond Aggregate Bond Index for U.S. bonds, and it's negative for the year. And this was largely considered our safe money throughout history, and now it's just not that way, because this is the first generation of baby boomers that have ever experienced a rising interest rate environment, and that's going to be very damaging to your bond portfolio. So I'd implore you to look into alternatives. There's been Dr. Weade of the American College has recommended that we not use bond funds, but look into using, say, fixed annuities or indexed annuities to provide us a similar return. You're looking at saying 3-4% a year from your bonds. Well, why don't you get 3 to 4% from a fixed annuity or an indexed annuity without having to worry about interest rate risk and default risk?
All right. We're going to move to Van Wert, Ohio, and Jay has an email question for us. We have a majority of our investments in index funds. So do we need to be concerned about this so-called index bubble?
Well, Jay, I think first, for everyone that doesn't know what the index bubble is, we have to really define that. And the index bubble has been something that has started to really catch up in the industry, in the major news media outlets, and start to hit front pages over the last couple of years. And that is because it really comes out of people like Warren Buffett and John Bogle. They've really encouraged us to funnel money into the S&P 500 using things like iShares S&P 500 index funds, or utilizing the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. Now you've got individuals, investors, whether they're retired or whether they're still working and taking money out of every paycheck in their 401k and putting it directly in the S&P 500, indiscriminately buying stocks. They don't care what they're buying, whether that company's creating earnings, if it has net earnings, if it's losing value, if it's got a great valuation, a horrible valuation, what their future growth opportunities are. They're indiscriminately buying these stocks. And when we make those deposits to places like the S&P 500, the largest companies get the majority of those dollars, and those larger companies, those stocks, just keep getting larger and larger, and eventually bubbles tend to pop. And that's what the argument is that we're seeing a bubble in these major indexes like the S&P 500, largely due to things like the FANG stocks that are getting the majority of the dollars that are going in to the S&P or the Dow Jones Industrial Average and creating these bubbles. Our approach has been to utilize separately managed accounts, unified managed accounts, individual managed stock portfolios, rather than just buying an index fund for our U.S. equity exposure, or even looking into things like DFA funds, dimensional funds, who are value-based, who are approaching U.S. equities with a value-based approach and a limited distribution channel. You can catch our podcast on the index bubble and DFA funds and our approach to this proposed index bubble in Retire with Purpose podcast. That's retirewithpurpose.com, and you can download that podcast. I think it was maybe episode 12 or something like that.
And I'm going to direct you back to retirewithpurpose.com. If you'd like to ask a question, there's a form there. You can ask a question. Maybe we'll include it here on the program. If you'd like more immediate feedback, you can always get on the phone, call right before the end of the program, and you can sit down with a member of the Howard Bailey team for a personalized, confidential, complimentary retirement review. It's a chance to learn what's going on in your retirement world. We'll take a look at whether or not you might have the resources to have a lifetime income you can outlive. And if you don't see that path today, maybe we can help you find that. What about long-term care? Are there provisions in your retirement plan today? Should there be? What can you do? All questions we'll cover in this complimentary review to help you get started down the path toward retiring with purpose. So I hope you'll be one of the people who call the number on the screen before the end of the program. We have operators standing by, like they say, to take your call. So we'll be right back in a second after our question of the day, and it has to do with retirement, of course. Here's our question of the day. What percentage of investment advisory firms offer a full range of insurance products directly? The answer when we come back.
At Howard Bailey Financial, every dollar has a purpose. We call it the purpose-based retirement. A certified financial planner will help you decide what you need your retirement money to do for you. We put together a written plan that puts your dollars exactly where you want them to be. And we put every dollar to work to maximize your retirement efficiency. For a higher level of insight and care, choose the purpose-based retirement from Howard Bailey Financial. Call us now to set a complimentary consultation.
Let's answer our question of the day. Going into the break, we asked you what percentage of investment advisory firms offer a full range of insurance products directly. Casey, what's the answer?
Well, Lee, the answer is actually B, 25%. Surveys show that 25% of investment advisors are offering a full range of insurance products to their clients. However, at the same time, 70% of those same advisors say that it's an important part of a holistic plan. So the question is, well, if 70% of investment advisors believe that it's an important and critical part of a holistic financial plan, why then are only a small fraction of them actually offering insurance products in their own firm? And I had a discussion with Dr. Weade Pfau, professor of retirement income here at the American College here recently on our podcast. And Dr. Weade Pfau has been somebody I have followed for many years, and we've really formulated our retirement strategies around his research. He is a CFA, a chartered financial analyst. He has a PhD in economics, and he's also an expert panelist for the Wall Street Journal. This guy knows what he's talking about, and he doesn't get paid to recommend you to use one product or another. And he wrote a couple of different books, and one titled How Much Can I Spend in Retirement? I actually don't have his reverse mortgage book here with me because another one of our members, Marshall Johnson, our vice president, is too busy reading it right now, because it was an excellent book. And I chose the reverse mortgage topic as the focus point of our podcast recording with Dr. Pfau because I wanted to cover some controversial subjects. And that is a very controversial subject, and one that I had a negative bias towards. I never wanted to recommend reverse mortgages. I never even wanted to talk about or research them because I had always heard that they were such bad investment vehicles. All I ever heard were negative things about them, and the same thing goes true largely for things in the insurance world, like long-term care insurance or annuities for that matter. And I wanted to address that with Dr. Pfau and see what he had to say. He said there's this dichotomy in the investment planning world, the financial planning world, I should say, especially when it comes to retirement income planning, where there's two different approaches. There's a safety-first approach and a probability approach. The investment world takes a probability approach and says, well, you have an 85, 90, 95% chance of success. The the safety first approach, which is the approach we take at our firm, looks at retirement and puts safety first and says we need to have a secure income before we even start having this investment discussion or this risk-based discussion. Let's see what Dr. Pfau has to say about safety versus probability.
You need both sides. You need insurance, you need investments, and you're increasingly finding advisors and people thinking about retirement who are comfortable talking about both and integrating both into an overall plan to help better manage the longevity risk, the sequence of returns risk, and the need for liquidity to help manage different spending shocks as well over a long retirement.
Well, the sequence of returns risk that Dr. Pfau talks about there is something that we focus on a lot. And that's one of the reasons we like to utilize these types of products in a financial plan, is to mitigate that risk. And Dr. Pfau talks to us in the podcast about why we shouldn't count on 7-8% returns in retirement, because what happens is as we start taking withdrawal, we're going to eventually have a pullback in the market. So you might have averaged 7% a year the last 10 years. You look at your statement, but that does also factor in 1 year when you lost 40% of its value, but you didn't take a distribution. You step into retirement, you start taking distributions during those bad years, and you run the risk of running out of money during retirement. And so now we're talking a little bit about annuities and how they might be utilized in a comprehensive or holistic financial plan. So I want to get the doctor's thoughts on how he thinks annuities should be incorporated into a financial plan if he believes that a real financial plan, retirement income strategy, should be composed of both. How do we actually use them? And this is what he had to say.
If you have a certain amount of expenses per year, say $80,000 or whatever the case may be, well, first look at things like Social Security, which is a guaranteed lifetime income. If you have any other pensions, that sort of thing. And then if there's still a gap, rather than trying to manage your whole retirement through these distributions from an investment portfolio, look at using income guarantees, an annuity, a lifetime income protection to help manage the longevity risk of not knowing how long you're going to live, and to help manage that sequence of returns risk where having to take distributions from a declining portfolio balance becomes increasingly risky in retirement. So basing that more on insurance.
Well, Dr. Pfau really focuses on utilizing annuities with a very academic approach, with this flooring strategy where we're going to guarantee an income stream at a level that's going to allow you to really separate your paychecks and your playchecks, as we often talk about. But more often than not, in our practice, we're segmenting it off and saying, let's create 5-10 years of guaranteed income and cover all your expenses, and use investments for long-term growth, really as they're meant to be used, because I think retirees take a less academic approach when it comes to their retirement plan in practice. So why do we see this difference if 70% of advisors actually think it should be utilized? Well, this is what Dr. Pfau had to say about why some advisors say, I hate annuities, and you should too.
Part of it just deals with like how different types of advisors are compensated, and some of the issues with, if you're an investment manager, if anytime you recommend an annuity, you're taking away assets that you can manage and therefore reducing the fees you can charge. But then on the annuity side, they're often sold as commissioned products where the advisor receives a commission for selling the annuity. And so you can say there's a bias there that, of course, they want to recommend the thing that will give them a commission. But there's really a bias on both sides of that.
So it all comes down to the bottom line.
Yeah, I think there's a really good thing to understand about compensation, but also about licensing. Some advisors are only licensed to do one thing or another, or they're working with a captive advisory firm or brokerage firm that doesn't even allow them to utilize those types of products.
Well, I hope you'll be one of the next 10 people to jump on the phone, calling a number on your screen to request a complimentary review of your retirement plan. We'll take a look at a number of factors to make sure that you are configured as best as possible. Fees and taxes you might be able to escape, and many other factors to help you get down the path toward a purpose-based retirement. So please be one of the next people who get on the phone before the end of the program here and call the number on your screen. That's all the time we have today. We will see you next week.